Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Time Flight, the season finale to season 19. It's a 4-part adventure written by Peter Grimwood, who directed a few Doctor Who stories, one being The Magnificent Earthshock. If you haven't seen my video on that, please do. It's one of my favourite Doctor Who stories. And it's directed by Ron Jones, who previously has directed Black Orchid. When this story came out, when it first aired, it was surprisingly really popular in Doctor Who fan polls on the Doctor Who magazines. It was actually up there as one of the highest stories of the Fifth Doctor era. But over time, fans' appreciations for it have gone down over the years, as a few big name Doctor Who contributors like Paul Cornell, who was very vocal on his distaste for this story, had their opinions personified, shall we say, as their words were used for the Doctor Who website. And so many fans read their review and maybe had their minds altered as they can see some of the problems of these stories. The fans had their opinions more resemble Paul Cornell, as he points out a lot of problems with them. And this story has now become like one of the least favourite stories of the classic era. Some might even consider it one of the worst Doctor Who stories. And some people, like this idiot right here, consider it so hilariously awful. It's so surprising on just how it just doesn't work that it becomes incredibly funny. It is incredibly funny. I can't stress how much doing this marathon was I just laughing my ass off through the entire situation of the video. Now I'm going to spoil a little bit at the start of this video, as it's very important to the canon of Doctor Who, because this story has the TARDIS team land in Heathrow Airport, the location in which they try to get Tegan to. And it's at the end of the story where the Doctor and Nessa leave without her, and she stays on Earth for a bit. In the next story, and TV-wise, she would return quickly after. But this bit of continuity leaves a little gap where the Doctor is travelling solely with Nessa. Why is this important? Because Big Finish Productions used this small little piece in its canon to open up wide ranges of stories, as Sarah Sutton at one point was the only companion to return for the Fifth Doctor, apart from the guy who played Turlough. But they had Sarah Sutton, they didn't have Jacqueline Fielding or Matthew Waterhouse, so Big Finish used this little gap in canon to and really extended it and made it feel like in between Time Flight and the Arc of Infinity, there was, for the Doctor and Tegan anyway, a massive amount of stories which they gapped on. But anyway, so let's get on to the actual story. The story starts off with what we see is a plane disappearing. This would be a plane from Heathrow Airport, with all its passengers missing. Now, a lot of you, including myself, would have gotten Faceless Ones vibes, a second Doctor story which also revolves around aircrafts and some of them going missing in mid-air flight. And I think the story had a really big missed opportunity to not make this a sequel to the Faceless Ones, especially how It's one of my favourite stories. I know it's not particularly a popular story, and when this story came out, it was probably already missing from the BBC archives, but it would have been really cool to see the Fifth Doctor fight the chameleons from that adventure. But that's more just me hoping. So let's get on to the actual adventure at hand. This small little this is supposed to be like open into the story and introduce our audience into the narrative. Really doesn't work, as just the dialogue in it is just so boring. This scene is just supposed to be like the gateway into our story. Really only seems to be focusing on the technical sides of the aeroplane going missing, and despite it's supposed to be just a small little teaser to kickstart our story, I'm sure that it feels like it's half the episode 1, which is not how you should pace a story. So when we get back to the TARDIS team, we see the Doctor and Tegan and Ness are still grieving over the death of Adric, who passed away in the last story, Earthshock, where he was on the freighter crash landing onto Earth, which would become the comet of the dinosaurs. And wow, Peter Grimwood directed that story. Now he's writing the next story. Well done for completely just obligating the last story. The scene basically plays out with Tegan asking the Doctor, let's go back in time and save Adric. And the Doctor's like, I can't do that. Don't ask me that again. We can't alter established history. He's dead, and his sacrifice was not in vain. He sacrificed to save people's lives, and I grieve as well. And then the Doctor's like, oh, we should all take a holiday to take our mind off things. He doesn't bloody care. But here's an interesting note, and I have like a little fan theory on time flight, which actually links into a massive theory that I have overall with Doctor Who, specifically the Doctor's TARDIS, as the Doctor first states to Tegan and Nessa that he's going to take them on a little holiday, maybe to see the opening of the Great Museum, or maybe watch some cricket, some famous cricket games in history. And they're just like, yeah, okay. I mean, you had a surprisingly, you took Adric's death surprisingly well, and clearly we're all upset, but yeah, why not? And Doctor then actually lands in Heathrow Airport, which is where Tegan was trying to get to, and she had, throughout the series, had scenes where she basically is asking the Doctor to return her back to Heathrow, to which the Doctor tries to oblige, but he keeps missing the mark. A great example is in The Visitation, in which he tried to get her back to Heathrow, but accidentally landed way earlier in the timeline. So we have these, suddenly now they're all back in Heathrow. Now, my theory, my suggestion is that the Doctor can actually pilot the TARDIS much better than he claims, because this has happened a few times. The Doctor stated that he can't fly the TARDIS properly, getting back to Earth with Ian and Barbara Chesterton, and with this story he tried to get Tegan back to Heathrow Airport, and now he is, after Adric's death and after everyone's grieving. My theory is that the Doctor pilots the TARDIS much better than he claims to, because even in this story, he seems to pilot the TARDIS perfectly well. He got the crew back from Earthshock back into their original place. He lands at Heathrow Airport more than once in this story, and just in general, he seems to fly the TARDIS much more precise than he normally does. And my theory is that when the Doctor says he can't because he doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS properly, he's basically lying so he can keep his friends around. And the reason why he didn't want telling Tegan that he was struggling to get to Heathrow, it was really because he wanted to keep her around the TARDIS, because he does like her and he wants to show her the universe. But after the death of Adric and he sees that this is he's done more harm than good to her life, does he then take her back to Heathrow? Now, I must state, this isn't actually stated in the story. It's just like a fan theory. But I digress. So, anyway, the Doctor then lands on Heathrow Airport, and before there could be any questioning on who he is and what's happening, he quickly basically pulls out the unit card, stating that he works for UNIT, and call up UNIT and let him know that the Doctor is on Heathrow. And because of that, the Doctor basically becomes in charge for an investigation on where the spaceship is. Now, when the Doctor tried to land in Heathrow, he was suffering through some turbulence. Something was interfering with the space-time continuum, and the Doctor believes that the same thing is the reason why the ship disappeared, the aeroplane disappeared. So he takes a small group of 3 air pilots and takes an aeroplane that's identical to the one that went missing, and told them to go on the same flight path. To which, apart from some turbulence, nothing really seems to happen until they land, and the Doctor realises there's some sort of perception filter, and after convincing everybody else, the story really starts to pick up as we find out we're in the Jurassic period, we're in the dinosaur times. And this is where the huge problems rely on this story. When we get to this Jurassic period of the plot, one thing that really doesn't hold up is the directing and the sets. Ron Jones proved that he's quite a capable director when it came to period dramas, and his shots, though maybe a little bit basic, were suitable for that kind of genre. But now he is tackling hard sci-fi as we're taken into an area full of rocks and caverns, and we have this strange man. We'll get to him, and he has this like weird technology, and we have to deal with him capturing these sentient plasmoid creatures that harness psychokinetic energy. And the show just looks horrible. It's an ugly mess to look at. The sets clearly look like sets, and it clearly looks like the budget was really pushed back onto this. Peter Davison has stated that he really enjoyed this story, but one of the big issues is that he thinks that if it had a bigger budget, it would have been much better received. I don't know about that, because most of the problems come from the script. And but there are huge issues with the scenery of it. A great example is when we go onto the set, the only representation in terms of being on set do we have of the aircraft that we've previously seen is just one of the wheels, which clearly, which isn't like anything like above it, casting a shadow on everyone. So it's clear today that it's just a single prop just standing there, which really, but it's funny. It's absolutely funny how all these actors are taking this situation seriously. But we as viewers can clearly just see that it's fake. And another part of it, what makes this story really funny, is the villain. I can't remember what his name was, but he's this really over-the-top racial stereotype of the evil genie, shall we say. And he's got this fat belly, and he conjures mythical energies to summon these really ridiculous looking monsters, and can hypnotize people and stuff. And the guy who plays him so over the top. You can see he's having so much fun. You can see it, he's just smiling constantly. He's cheerful. He might be given a bad script, but he's like, I'm making this. I'm giving this one of my greatest performances in Doctor Who, because this is somebody who's been in Doctor Who before. For you see, it's revealed later on in part 2 that this is actually the Master in disguise. Why is that so funny? Well, the majority of the story, we see this him in his disguise, in a room by himself, acting as his alter ego. So the Master's just literally just in his own room watching it, and watching this on a second viewing. Yeah, oh my god, it's oh, it's funny. It's absolutely funny. When you see him just crackling up, it's just hilarious. And Dr. Tegan and Nessa try their best to try and diverse his power. Tegan and Nessa actually try and get into the heart of the city, in which heart of the building, to which the Master, at this point still in his disguise, has made his base of operations, because that seems to be the heart of the power of this psychokinetic energy. And to try and get the Tegan and Nessa to get away from the centre, he makes 3 visions appear. One of them is actually Adric, who states that he's still alive and was and them to go back, otherwise they will kill him. Which I think is actually a pretty decent phantom, pretty great idea, that, you know, to keep this guard down, it takes the resemblance of someone they know, who they've loved, and they've who's passed away recently, and it's like, I'm alive, go back now before I get hurt in any way. But the scene plays it way too quick. It's literally, oh no, Adric, wait, he's not real. Okay, runs off after him as Adric screams. And then to make the situation even more hilarious, they do the same thing again, as now it takes the form of the Melker, the thing from the Keeper of Traken. Really weird in terms of dialogue, because Tegan asks Nessa, what is it? And Nessa says, it's the thing, and the person controlling it killed my father. But what's really strange is that Tegan knows who the Master is. So why didn't she just state it's the Master? I don't know. But again, it happens really quick. It goes, oh my god, it's the thing that killed my father. No, Nessa, it's not real. No, it's not. Walks past. And rewatching this, after completely forgetting about that scene is hilarious. The fact that they pull the same plot thread twice, and it's just like, oh no, wait, it's not real. Okay, walks off. And do you know what's even funnier? The bit that made me just cry out in just pure agony of humour. they do it again right after. As soon as the milk is gone, the pterodactyl from the Visitation then appears. And also, can I just say that despite the animatronics in the Visitation being really cool, in here, for some reason, it looks really cheap. And maybe it could be with Ron Jones directing and not having a comfortable style in terms of how to direct a monster like this. Because really, all the monsters just look really ridiculous in this story. And they do it again. It's, oh no, it's the creature. No, it's not real. Okay, walk through it. How are we supposed to feel threatened when any situation like this, anybody could just go, that's not real, walks past? It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. You might hate it. You might think that's really stupid, and it is, but it's absolutely hilarious. But either way, Tegan and Nessa get into the center of this room, and Nessa trying to release the creature inside, a Xerophon from the planet Zerofast. A creature that used to be one of the most dominant species in the universe, but now are extinct, and because of a radiation poison on their planet. And Nessa sets them free and destroying the power source of the main villain. And showing his weakness, his face starts melting and collapses to the floor. And the Doctor and his new friends that have appeared in this story try to state that that it's all like psychic energy. But when one of the characters looks inside one of the boxes there, they see that it is electrical in power. It's actual machinery, and the Doctor doesn't understand. Only for the villain crying on the floor with the voice of Anthony Ainley is like, "You never understand, Doctor, didn't you?" And Anthony Ainley kind of takes off his suit. Really cartoonish. It reminds me of Benny Hill's cameo from The Meaning of Life, in which he just zips up, takes off, and he's like already like completely in costume. And Anthony Ainley. Now, with Anthony Ainley, you might remember in my video for Cast Revolver, I said in that he was giving off one of his weakest performances. Not bad, but you can clearly tell he was reeling it in. And Anthony Ainley basically is born to play over-the-top, cartoonish life, larger-than-life characters. John Nathan Turner, Ron Jones, and Peter Grimway. Let Anthony Ainley just be Anthony Ainley. He is just so enjoyable to watch here. He might be over the top, it might distract you from the rest of the story, but my God, is that man giving it his all. You might not like this story, but Anthony Ainley, you cannot deny, is in a fantastic presence in this story. And so we get just a few just like ridiculous scenes. One of my favourites is the room that Nessa and Tegan are at. Like there's a wall that heals up, and the Master has hypnotised a group of people to try and break in. And one of them seems to be one of the air pilots that the Doctor took with him. And their captain, who's now befriended the Doctor, finds them and tries talking him down. Because he's talking in aeroplane lingo, it's kind of getting to him, and his hypnotising works. And the scene in which that plays out, in which he's kind of like schizophrenic when he goes from the lingo and then he's like, "Professor, stop!" I bloody love that bit. I crack up. I don't know if it's because it is a genuinely bad scene, or if the actor in it just plays it so... He's so into the role. He might not be particularly good at the role, but he's particularly into the role. One thing I do actually like about Time Flight is its acting. There are some pretty good actors in this story. We have the 3 crew members that travelled with the Doctor on the second plane into the Jurassic period. They don't have much in terms of personality, apart from really the captain, who seems to befriend the Doctor much quicker than most. He's gained a great respect for the Doctor and his scientific skill. But the acting in them is really good, and despite them not having really much to do, you do enjoy having fun with these characters. When they find the crew of the previous plane that went missing, one of the characters was actually I believe he was a hypnotist, or he's a psychologist, and he understands about hypnosis, and so he broke out of the Master's hypnotic suggestion, and he was the only one who wasn't really affected by it, and he teams up with our crew. And the actor who plays him does a fantastic job at playing this grouchy old man who tries to reason everything out. For example, when they do meet him, he believes that the ship was taken over by Russians, and they're now in like a Russian secret like facility, sort of similar to like the Cold War. But the problem is the writing. The majority of his scenes basically bow down to him going, "Doctor, this is ridiculous." And the Doctor's like, "No, it's not." He's like trying to reason with him, and then he's like, "No, this is preposterous. Come on, let's get out of here." And so we get a really humorous, schizophrenic feel with this story, as it doesn't really know what to do. I will say, cliffhanger for part 3 is really good, in which we basically learn that the Xerophons, they've basically put all of their sentient beings into one person. So it's like this one entity that has schizophrenia, and it's broken down into 2 personalities, the good side and the evil side. And the evil side wants to work with the Master, but the good side wants to help the Doctor, and they fight each other basically mentally until the bad guy basically wins, and the Master succeeds in taking the Xerophon's ability into his TARDIS, and the Doctor even states with the cliffhanger that the Master has finally defeated him. That's a really good cliffhanger, especially considering who the Master is. But the next story then, we don't really get to see this Grand Master. Yeah, and now that Nessa and the Master are now again in the same story, in the same scenes, they still don't play with the fact that her father, the guy who murdered her father, is now walking around in his corpse. They just never state it. It's really bizarre. It's really strange. But that's no hero there. So the Master, it's revealed, has a broken TARDIS. And so he kidnaps the Doctor's TARDIS to get some equipment working. And the Doctor basically reasons with him to get some of his machinery back in order to give the Master a vital opponent of his TARDIS. If only the Master frees all of his victims and let them go, and the Doctor transports them back to Heathrow Airport. But the Doctor states to Nessa that the device that the Doctor gave to the Master is actually like a faulty one, and what will happen then is that the Master will appear in Heathrow Airport moments after him and the TARDIS arrive on there. And what he plans to do then is plant the TARDIS where the Master's TARDIS would have been, and basically put like a, "No, you can't move, I'm already here," and he shoots the Master's TARDIS to Xerophas, where the Xerophons will have much more power over themselves, to which then they could overthrow the Master, and also because the Doctor's TARDIS piece was really faulty, the Master would be stuck on the planet of Zerophas until the next time we see him. And the way how it just ends is so abrupt. I mean, we don't even see the Master's reaction. We literally just see his TARDIS appear, and then the Doctor's like places some switches there, and the Master's gone. He's stuck there. Ha ha ha! I've won. And Tegan goes out to get some fresh air, or she tries to help all the people on the aircraft make sure that they're safe. And the Doctor tries to wonders where Tegan is, but before he could bring back the Tegan, police officers actually noticed the Doctor and his TARDIS, and the leader of Heathrow Airport, the boss, tries to get some answers from the Doctor. The Doctor, sent in a very awkward situation, goes into his TARDIS and leaves without Tegan. And that's how the story ends. That's Time Flight. Overall, it is probably the first story in this marathon which, in my opinion, is so ridiculously bad that it's funny. It just cracks me up at just how some scenes play out, and it feels like Peter Grimwood, despite being one of the best directors of the series, his writing in this story feels like a first attempt. It feels like he just wrote this on a board Tuesday and gave it to John Nathan Turner, not really thinking much of it. And John Nathan Turner actually accepted maybe on the principle that he's a great director. So maybe he earned the right to become a writer for the series. He would write again for 2 more stories, which I would be glad to state are a lot better. And I say give the story a watch. Invite some friends over, get some cans of beer out, and just have a laugh at just how ridiculous this story can get. It might be, if you're one of those people who can't find enjoyment in bad storytelling, I think maybe give this one a pass. It really sidelines the tragedy of Adric, and the plot really doesn't know where it's going for the majority of it. Scenes seem to be come and go. Plot elements seem not as strong as they should do. The directing is weak, the writing is weak, and overall it's just weak. That's the best way of putting it. But it's a lot of fun, and you can see that Anthony Ainley gives one of his most outrageous performances in Doctor Who. So there you go, that's Time Flight. So join me next time where we will actually be listening to one of these Doctor and Nessa stories. I only have one, I'm afraid. So if you are a huge fan of this era, I do apologise. But anyway, so join me next time when the Doctor and Nessa land on Mondas, many years before the Cybermen invasion of 1986 took place. So join me next time for Spare Parts. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!